What's going on, everyone? So yesterday the Lakers got a huge win against the Los Angeles Clippers, ending an 11-game win streak against us. It took overtime. Wasn't the prettiest win, but regardless, I will take it. Last year, this is the type of game that we would have lost. I mean, look at the Sacramento game. It was like that was a game that we should have won. Lakers, again, should have won this in regulation. Paul George hit some crazy shots, but nonetheless, the Lakers were able to squeak out that win, and it was huge. It was a team win. I mean, D'Lo was fantastic, AD, LeBron, Austin Reeves finally started to come into his own a little bit, and we also got to see a three-big lineup, right? You got to see Anthony Davis along with Jaxson Hayes, and you got to see Christian Wood play in that spot. You saw pretty much all of them defending Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right? And all of them did an excellent job on that defensive side of the basketball, especially against Kawhi Leonard. And this is a lineup that I've thrown out and talked about on numerous occasions here on this channel about how, one, Christian Wood is really good at defending perimeter guys. We saw his defense on Kevin Durant. He's been great defensively. Again, if you followed his career and not just like the Houston-Dallas stint, then you know that he's capable of being a good defender. I did a whole video breaking down his defense over the years. And it's just he developed a stigma really with Dallas more than anything. But it's hard for a guy like Christian Wood, who isn't Anthony Davis, to be plugged into a team that has zero defense, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. And this year they're continuing that trend and be expected to basically be Anthony Davis and go and defend basically four players at once, constantly having their backcourt get blown by, and now he's on this island trying to net. Like, he's not that guy, but he's good enough in a team defense or even in individual matchups to where he can hold his own and he can make an impact. Jaxson Hayes, excellent pick and roll defensive guy. He's got good size, good length, good quickness, good foot speed, right? He's athletic. He's a guy that can stay in front and use his length against some of these just quicker players. Now, this isn't a lineup that I necessarily think that you can play constantly, right? Like, even in this game against the Clippers, I thought it was just enough of a heavy dose, right? Like, I saw a lot of people wanted Darvin Ham to stick with that more, stick with that longer. And I think, yeah, maybe he could have, but eventually teams are going to figure that out. Eventually, you know, guys like Kawhi Leonard, who are just, they're that gifted of scorers, you know, Paul George, stuff like that, they're going to figure that out if you play that too long. But I do think in little doses here and there, you know, little 5-minute stints or whatever, in certain matchups, certain games, I definitely think you get away with it. I don't think you could do that against, like, say, the Warriors, right? Where they have, like, Chris Paul, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins, something like that, where you are basically putting one of these guys on, you know, Andrew Wiggins or Steph or something like that, because they're just going to get blown by. But somebody like a Kawhi Leonard, who he's not this explosive athlete that is just going to blow by you, you can use a guy like Jaxson Hayes or Christian Wood to basically just kind of keep a gap, use your size and length to close that gap and create an impact and just make things really difficult and challenging for said offensive player. Just like we saw with Christian Wood against Kevin Durant. What did he do? He gave him space so he couldn't get blown by. And then whenever Kevin Durant would just try to rise up, he would close the gap with his size and length to basically interfere with the shot, right? And that's why Christian Wood is good defensively out on the perimeter, because he is 6'10" and has, you know, 7'3" wingspan or something like that, right? Like, his ability to basically close a gap with his length is why he can defend well out on the perimeter. Jaxson Hayes at times can switch and defend guys well out on the perimeter. But if that's your entire defensive game plan, you're not going to be able to do that against every team night in and night out, especially with some of these quicker, just more explosive perimeter players. You know, like a guy like a Mikal Bridges. You probably couldn't do that, right? It has to be in the right moments, in the right doses. Now, if you're running like maybe like a zone, which we saw a little bit of, right? Like having that size and that length, you could kind of get away with it, right? Certain defensive schemes, certain defensive matchups, I do believe that that can have a real impact on the course of the game. And it was something that the Clippers just didn't expect, right? But even Darvin Ham talked about potentially doing this and throwing these lineups and throwing these looks out there. And this is why I've defended Darvin Ham on his experimentation, right? Like, I think it's funny because it's always like a catch-22, right? You see people, when Darvin Ham will throw a specific lineup out there, people lose their minds, right? If it doesn't work out exactly the way that you want it to work out. But then he throws a lineup out there, again, like a Christian Wood on a Kevin Durant. If I told you we should do that, which I have talked about, but people gave me pushback. It said, no, you can't do it. And what happened? He helped us win that game, right? That adjustment changed so much, right? Darvin Ham throwing out, Christian Wood, Jaxson Hayes, and Anthony Davis just threw a complete monkey wrench into what the Clippers were doing. And they didn't know how to react immediately. Again, if you would have done that for an entirety of a game, I do think that they would have figured it out. But I think, if you're playing at Denver, I think you can get away with it, right? I think you could throw Christian Wood on Michael Porter Jr., Anthony Davis kind of playing that scout role, give Aaron Gordon a little space. If he wants to shoot that corner three, maybe give it a little challenge, but you can live with that. If Aaron Gordon hits 9 threes, you live with that, right? And then you kind of have Hayes and AD kind of double teaming Jokic whenever he gets the ball and kind of leaving Aaron Gordon there on an island. Again, if Aaron Gordon's the guy that beat you, then he beat you. You live with that. A team like Utah, right? I think Christian Wood can go out and defend a Lauri Markkanen, right? Like some of these, like just not super quick, super explosive type guys, like Michael Porter Jr. can take you off the dribble, but he's not this like super light speed, just gonna blow by you like some of these 6'7" perimeter wings or 6'8" perimeter wings, right? He's more of like, I like to go and catch and shoot, get the quick release, try to knock down the three, where I think you could have a Christian Wood kind of funnel him around. Just some examples of matchups that I think that this unit would work with. But this is why, again, I defend Darvin Ham when he's throwing out all these different lineups and all these different looks, because you need to find out what works and what doesn't, right? Like, if he doesn't throw that lineup out there, do we win this game? I mean, in all honesty, I don't know. Because that really changed the tide in the course of that game. Now, if it didn't work, Darvin Ham would have been, crucified, right? Everyone would have gone after, why would you go and play Jaxson Hayes and, Christian Wood and Anthony Davis when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are out there? Like, again, it's a catch-22. He throws out lineups, and when they work, I've been telling him he should have been doing that. But when it doesn't work, it's like, look, Darvin Ham, terrible coach, right? Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. We can't have it that way. You need to experiment. You need to throw these types of just weird, wacky lineups out there. Again, I talked about this exact lineup. Again, it's the evidence is there. It's in the videos. Right, where I talked about going with Christian Wood. I've talked about it in live streams. Let's go and play Christian Wood, Jaxson Hayes, Anthony Davis. Put them out there in small little doses. I talked about it repeatedly. Some people agreed. Some people gave pushback. And those people that gave pushback are now, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. But you don't get there without Darvin Ham making that experiment. Taking a chance on, hey, let's see if this works. Let's see if Christian Wood can defend Kevin Durant, right? The rebounding was fantastic. I mean, Christian Wood has dude, he might be the best pickup that we had. And, many of us thought so too, right? Like, that to me was like, this solidifies it. And we still have a lot to work on as a team. Lot to work on. We got to stop these 20-point come from behinds, right? So far, we've kind of been able to win more than we've lost to those. But over the course of the season, if that keeps happening, you're going to lose more games than you win. Missing 3 of your top 4 or 5 defensive players, that doesn't help either, right? And, 3 of the guys are supposed to be good shooters in Prince, Gabe Vincent, and then Rui Hachimura, who all three of them have had their good moments. All three of them have had their just blunders shooting the basketball. More so Gabe Vincent than anybody, right? He's really struggled shooting the three ball, which is a little concerning to me just because last year he struggled really bad shooting the ball with Miami until they got to the playoffs. And then once they got to the playoffs, he was back to like 38, 40%. So I'm hoping that that's not like a trend all year this year. I'm hoping that he can kind of get back into the flow of things. But I really like this lineup. It's something that I was preaching to see out there on the court. And I credit Darvin Ham for actually going with it. And it made the impact, right? And you need samples. Like, this was a small sample size. Let's see it again against other matchups, right? Let's see it again. You know, I wouldn't mind if they threw it out there against Orlando. See what it looks like, right? Experiment a little bit. Let's see. Throw it out there against Miami, right? If they have a unit where they have, like, you know, Kevin Love and Bam Adebayo out there, right? Like, throw these guys out there. Let's see what it looks like, right? Let's see how, you know, how this fares. Because you got to stick with stuff, right? And it is. It's a fine line. And it's tough at times because it's like, you know, when's the cutoff point, right? If a lineup isn't great, you don't want to just cut it off immediately, right? You want to let things kind of marinate a little bit and then maybe even give it another go around. That's why, like, a lot of people are like, oh, this lineup isn't working, and you need to pull, like, you need to let things play out though too, right? You throw something out there, and in the first minute that they're out there, a team goes on an 8-0 run or something, like, they probably would have went on that run regardless, right? If a team just catches fire and starts hitting shots, right? Basketball is a game of runs. So you got to kind of navigate that and figure that out. It's, you know, but it's also like, when is the cutoff point, right? Do you let it marinate to a point where it all of a sudden becomes detrimental? That's what you don't want to happen as well, right? So, look, again, I trust Darvin Ham. I like what we're seeing from Darvin Ham. I believe that he's going to continue to do this, and he's going to find some success. He's going to find success that isn't great, but it's not about necessarily early in the season. It's about finding these out now, so that way when you get to the back half of the season, you can lock in your rotation, you can figure out what you need to do in that regard, and then you can start ramping up and getting ready for the playoffs. And now you have your rotation, you know what sets you have that work against what type of units and stuff like that, and you can kind of now play that chess game that is the NBA playoffs. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Did you love this lineup? Were you not a big fan of this lineup? You know, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you all in the next one. Thank you.